The research station on Valaris 9 hummed with its usual rhythms. Air cyclers breathing, data streams flowing, and the distant rumble of geological sensors probing the planet's restless crust. But in the medical bay, Dr. Ellen Rowe lay motionless beneath sterile white sheets, her breathing shallow and labored. The fever had come suddenly, as these things often did on frontier worlds. Some alien pathogen, perhaps, or simply the toll of too many sleepless nights and forgotten meals. The station's AI had administered what treatments it could, but Ellen's immune system was waging a war that would take days to resolve. She drifted in and out of consciousness, her body burning with heat one moment and shivering with cold the next. Outside her sealed quarters, 3 small figures pressed their faces against the observation window. Tavi was the largest of the 3, though large was relative when speaking of the Velarate young. His tawny fur stood on end, his wide golden eyes reflecting worry in their depths. Beside him, Norn chittered anxiously, her smaller frame trembling. Kessa, the smallest, made soft keening sounds that echoed through the corridor. They had been watching for hours. "The human is sick," Tavi said, his translator collar rendering his clicks and whistles into standard. His voice carried the simple certainty of youth. "Very sick," Norn agreed, pressing one paw against the glass. "Like we were." The memory was still fresh in their young minds, the time before when they had been the ones suffering. It had been during the harsh season, when the crystal storm swept across Valaris 9's surface and food became scarce. Their den had collapsed, and they had been trapped beneath rubble, injured and alone. Dr. Ellen Rowe had found them. She had been conducting a geological survey when she detected their distress calls. Without hesitation, she had diverted from her mission, dug through the debris with her own hands until they bled, and carried all 3 cubs back to the research station. For weeks she had nursed them, feeding them, warming them, staying awake through long nights when the fever threatened to take them. The other researchers had questioned her judgment. The Velarites were not classified as sapient, merely clever pack animals. Resources were limited. Time was precious. But Ellen had looked into their eyes and seen something more. She had wrapped them in thermal blankets, given them soft toys from her personal quarters to comfort them, and sung strange human songs in the darkness, and they had survived. Now, watching her through the glass, Tavi understood with the crystal clarity that only children possess. She needed them. "We have to help her," he said. "But how?" Norn asked. "We're too small. We don't know human medicine." Kessa's ears perked up suddenly. She chirped, a sound of realization, and scampered away down the corridor. Tavi and Norn exchanged glances before following. The station's corridors were not designed for creatures their size, but they had learned to navigate them over the months since their rescue. Kessa led them to the storage bay where Ellen kept her personal belongings. The door was sealed, but Tavi had watched the humans long enough to understand the basic principles of the control panel. His small paws danced across the interface until, with a satisfied beep, the door slid open. Inside, they found treasures. There was the blue thermal blanket that Ellen had wrapped them in during their recovery, soft, warm, smelling faintly of human and safety. There were the toys she had given them, a worn stuffed creature with button eyes, a ball that glowed when squeezed, a puzzle box that made musical sounds. "These," Kessa said, gathering the blanket in her small arms. "She gave these to us when we were sick." Understanding dawned. Tavi grabbed the stuffed toy while Norn collected the other items. Together they dragged their treasures through the corridors, working as a pack the way their species had evolved to do. The medical bay's door was more sophisticated than the storage locker, equipped with biometric scanners and quarantine protocols. But the cubs had learned something important during their time among humans. Persistence could overcome almost any obstacle. They chittered and called until the station's AI finally acknowledged them. "Medical quarantine is in effect," the synthetic voice announced. "Access restricted. Human is sick," Tavi said into his translator. "Need to help. You cannot provide medical assistance. Please return to your designated area." "Not medicine," Norn chirped. "Comfort, like she gave us." There was a pause. Perhaps the AI was processing this unusual request, or perhaps some subroutine recognized the pattern Ellen herself had programmed into its learning algorithms. The door slid open a fraction, just enough for small bodies to squeeze through. The cubs entered carefully, reverently. Up close, Ellen looked even more fragile than she had through the glass. Her dark skin was ashen, her breathing ragged. The monitoring equipment painted her vital signs in amber and red. Tavi approached first, dragging the blue blanket. With surprising gentleness, he spread it across her still form, tucking it around her shoulders the way she had once done for him. The blanket was small by human standards, but it covered her core, adding its warmth to the medical bay's regulated temperature. Norn placed the glowing ball beside Ellen's hand, pressing it so that soft light pulsed in comforting rhythms. A heartbeat made visible. Kessa, the smallest and gentlest, climbed carefully onto the edge of the bed. She placed the worn stuffed toy, the one Ellen had called Mr. Whiskers, on the pillow beside the human's head. Then she curled up nearby, her small body radiating warmth, and began to purr, a sound that transcended species, a vibration of comfort and companionship. The other two joined her. 3 small shapes arranged protectively around their human, offering the only medicine they knew: presence, warmth, and the silent promise that she was not alone. Hours passed. The cubs did not leave. When the other researchers finally found them, Dr. Ellen Rowe's fever had broken. She lay sleeping peacefully, one hand resting on Kessa's soft fur, the blue blanket tucked around her, surrounded by the toys and comfort she had once given to 3 desperate cubs. The station's xenobiologist, Dr. Yoshi Chen, stood in the doorway, his datapad forgotten in his hand. "The Velorites aren't sapient," he murmured, though his voice carried no conviction. Ellen's eyes fluttered open at the sound. She looked down at the cubs, understanding immediately what had happened. Tears gathered at the corners of her eyes, not from fever, but from something far more profound. "Intelligence isn't just about tool use or language," she whispered, her voice hoarse but steady. "It's about recognizing suffering and choosing to ease it." Tavi lifted his head, his golden eyes meeting hers. In that moment, across the vast gulf of evolution and biology, 2 species understood each other perfectly. The cubs had not brought medicine or advanced technology. They had brought what mattered most: love returned in the only language that every sentient being understands. And in the cold mathematics of the cosmos, where humans had always stood alone in their capacity for compassion, 3 small creatures had proven that perhaps, just perhaps, humanity's greatest gift was not that they cared for others. It was that they taught others to care in return.